morning Daniel Carter missed his flight was the morning his life quietly cracked open and let destiny walk in without asking permission. He had not planned to be late. Single fathers rarely do. His alarm rang at 4:30, the same way it always did, sharp and unforgiving, pulling him out of a shallow sleep filled with unfinished worries. He rose carefully so he would not wake Lily, his 6-year-old daughter, curled up like a comma under her faded unicorn blanket. For a moment he stood there watching her breathe, the rise and fall of her chest reminding him why he pushed himself through days that felt heavier than they should. That flight was important, a job interview in another city, a real chance at stability after 3 years of juggling freelance work, daycare schedules, and the quiet judgment of people who thought a man raising a child alone must have done something wrong. Everything depended on that plane. But fate, Daniel would later realize, does not care about schedules. Fate waits in small delays in spilled cereal, in a child waking up crying from a bad dream at the exact wrong moment. Lily woke just as Daniel was tying his shoes. She called out for him, her voice thin and trembling, and when he went to her, she clung to him like she was afraid he might disappear. "Don't go," she whispered, half asleep. He sat with her longer than he should have, stroking her hair, promising he would be back before she even noticed he was gone. By the time he handed her to Mrs. Alvarez next door and drove to the airport, traffic had thickened like wet cement. When Daniel finally ran through the terminal, breath burning in his chest, the departure board already glowed with the words that made his stomach drop. Gate closed. He stood there for a long moment, hands on his knees, the noise of the airport washing over him, feeling like the universe had just quietly said no. Anger came first, sharp and immediate, then shame, then the familiar exhaustion that settled into his bones, like it had learned the shape of him. He sank onto a cold plastic chair near a row of vending machines, staring at his useless ticket. He thought of Lily's smile when he told her Daddy was going to try for a better job. He thought of how he would explain this failure to her in words small enough not to hurt. That was when he noticed her. She stood near the exit doors, just beyond the hum of announcements and rolling suitcases, as if she existed slightly outside the rhythm of the place. She was wrapped in a thin gray coat that was too large for her, sleeves hiding her hands. Her dark hair fell in tangled waves around a face that, even under layers of exhaustion and grime, was strikingly beautiful. Not in the polished, magazine cover way, but in a quiet, haunting way that made you look twice. People passed her without seeing her, eyes sliding away as if she were part of the wall. A cardboard sign rested at her feet. Daniel couldn't read what it said from where he sat, but he could guess. He had learned in the last few years how thin the line was between having a home and losing it. He watched as a businessman brushed past her, shoulder nearly colliding with hers, and she flinched like she was used to being invisible. Something tightened in Daniel's chest. He told himself to look away. He had his own problems. Missed flights didn't refund themselves. Dreams didn't wait. But his feet moved before his mind caught up. He stood, walked toward her, and only when he was close did he read the sign. "Just need food." "Thank you." The handwriting was careful, almost polite, as if she were apologizing for existing. Up close, he noticed her eyes. They were a pale green, the kind that caught light even in shadow, and they lifted to meet his, with a guarded wariness that suggested life had not been gentle with her. "Hi," Daniel said, feeling awkward, aware of how empty words could sound in moments like this. She nodded once, not smiling, not begging. He asked her name. "Emily," she said softly, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to say it out loud. He offered to buy her breakfast from the cafe nearby. For a second, pride flickered across her face, sharp and defensive, and he almost apologized for offending her. Then her shoulders sagged and she nodded. They sat at a small table by the window. Daniel ordered eggs, toast, coffee, and an extra pastry he knew Lily would have loved. Emily ate slowly, carefully, like someone who had learned to stretch moments of kindness as long as possible. Between bites, silence settled. Not uncomfortable, just heavy with unasked questions. Daniel told her, without meaning to, about his missed flight, about Lily, about how hard it was to keep going when every step forward felt like 2 steps back. He was surprised at how easily the words came out. Emily listened without interrupting, her eyes never leaving his face. When she spoke, her voice was steady but tired. She told him she had once worked at an art gallery, that she loved sketching people in public places, that things had gone wrong. After her mother died and the apartment they shared slipped through her fingers. She didn't dramatize it. She didn't ask for pity. That, more than anything, broke something open in Daniel. Time passed unnoticed. Announcements echoed and faded. When Daniel glanced at his watch, panic flared again. He had to pick up Lily soon. He stood, awkwardly pulling cash from his wallet, pressing more into Emily's hand than he had planned. She tried to refuse. He closed her fingers gently around it. "Please," he said. "You helped me more than you know." She looked at him then, really looked, and something unspoken passed between them, something fragile and real. As he walked away, Daniel felt lighter and heavier all at once. He didn't know why meeting a stranger at an airport felt more important than the flight he'd missed, only that it did. As he drove home, Lily's laughter filling the car as she told him about her morning, Daniel kept seeing Emily's eyes, hearing the calm strength in her voice. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Daniel sat alone at the kitchen table, the quiet pressing in, and wondered how many lives brushed past each other every day without ever truly touching. If you're feeling this moment, this pause where one missed step leads to an unexpected connection, then you already know why stories like this matter. Stay with us, subscribe to the channel, because this is only the beginning. The missed flight was not the end of Daniel's journey. It was the first step toward a meeting that would change everything. For him, for Emily, and for a little girl who believed her father could still make miracles happen. Daniel did not expect to see Emily again. Life, especially his life, did not circle back neatly. It moved forward in uneven lines, pulled by school schedules, grocery lists, unpaid bills, and the constant awareness that one wrong step could send everything tumbling. Yet 3 days after the missed flight, on a gray afternoon heavy with rain, destiny returned quietly, the same way it had at the airport. Daniel had just picked Lily up from school. She skipped beside him, backpack bouncing, chattering about finger painting and a boy who said unicorns were not real. Daniel smiled, offering the reassuring responses he had perfected, when he noticed a familiar figure near the small bus stop across the street. A thin gray coat, dark tangled hair, a posture that held both pride and fatigue in the same breath. His heart stumbled. Emily stood there, staring at the pavement as rain speckled the concrete around her worn shoes. Lily tugged at his hand. "Daddy," she said, her voice bright with curiosity. That lady looked sad. Children, Daniel had learned, saw truths adults trained themselves to ignore. Before he could overthink it, before fear or caution could interfere, Daniel crossed the street. Emily looked up, surprise flashing across her face, followed by something warmer. Something like relief she quickly tried to hide. "Hi," Daniel said again, the same simple word, but this time it felt heavier, like it carried intention. Lily peeked out from behind his leg. "This is my daughter Lily," he said. Emily knelt despite the ache, clearly written in her movements, and smiled at Lily with a gentleness that made Daniel's chest tighten. "I'm Emily," she said. Lily studied her seriously, then grinned. "You're really pretty," she announced, as if stating an obvious fact. Emily laughed, a soft, surprised sound that seemed unused to escaping her. That laugh changed something. Daniel felt it like a door opening. They talked there in the rain longer than they should have. Emily admitted she had been staying at a shelter on the edge of town, that it was safer than the streets but loud and crowded, that sleep came in pieces. Daniel hesitated only a moment before offering what felt both reckless and inevitable. "We have a spare room," he said carefully. "It's not much, and I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but if you need a place to rest for a while." The words hung between them, fragile and dangerous. Emily's first instinct was refusal. He saw it in the way her shoulders straightened, in the way she prepared her practiced smile of gratitude without acceptance. Then Lily slipped her small hand into Emily's. "Please," Lily said simply. Emily's eyes filled and she turned away, ashamed of tears that fell anyway. That night Emily slept in a real bed for the first time in months. Daniel lay awake, listening to the unfamiliar quiet of another adult breathing in his home, wondering if he had crossed a line he could not uncross. The days that followed reshaped themselves around Emily's presence. She cooked when she could, cleaned when her energy allowed, and spent afternoons sketching at the kitchen table while Lily colored beside her. Daniel learned pieces of her past in fragments. How her mother's illness had drained their savings, how grief had hollowed her out until she missed deadlines, lost her job, then her apartment, how quickly society stopped seeing her as a person once she no longer had an address. In return, Daniel shared his own truths, The night Lily's mother left and never came back. The years of anger he carried like a shield. The fear that he was failing at the one job that mattered. Somewhere between shared meals and quiet evenings, something deeper began to form. Not a dramatic romance, not yet, but a trust that felt rare and precious. Emily found a part-time job at a local cafe. Daniel rescheduled his interview and flew out a week later, this time making it on board. When he returned with news of a job offer, Lily jumped into Emily's arms before Daniel could even speak. It was in that moment, watching them together, that Daniel understood the truth he had been circling since the airport. The missed flight had not been a mistake. It had been an exchange. One future traded for another, richer one. On a warm evening weeks later, Emily stood on the porch, watching the sunset bleed into the sky. "I don't know how to thank you," she said quietly. Daniel shook his head. "You don't have to," he replied. "You didn't just find shelter here. You found us, and we found you." Emily reached for his hand, not in desperation but in choice. If this story moved you, if you believe that small moments can change entire lives, then stay with us. Subscribe to the channel for more stories where destiny hides in missed chances and ordinary kindness becomes something extraordinary. Because sometimes, the flight you miss is the one that finally takes you home.